I want to start right now talking about Sony, of all things. Sony. Sony developed an electric car.
They did.
Yeah. Now, granted, they showed it last year and they built it from scratch. It's called the Vision S. And I'm blown away because this is a lot like companies like Sony doing this, Apple we talked about, and who else and whoever else might come up out the woodwork in the years to come. It's amazing to me that this type of thing towards the electric car really kind of replicates the whole auto industry when it started over 120 years ago.
Explain.
Okay. In the late 1800s, people tinkered in their garages, horseless carriages, this new fuel called gasoline. Some even used electric. There was steam powered. People were enamored with developing personal vehicles that did not require literal horses. The horseless carriage is what they called it back then. And from there, our modern auto industry started to evolve. By the turn of the last century, right around 1900 to 1910, is really when the auto industry as we know it started to gel together. At one point, and I think it was about 1909, upwards of some 1,800 companies in the United States were either designing, trying to build, or finance to build a car of some sort. Anybody in their garage for the most part. There were cities that had a favorite son car company in places you've never heard of, from Massachusetts across Ohio, Indiana, here in Iowa. There was a number of cars. Even in Des Moines, there was 2 car companies here, and I'm not talking about Ford. That predated Ford. There were 2, actually, that tried to get started. So a lot of that was going on. Now, with the evolution of the electric vehicle, Tesla being one of the pioneers, we've talked about a lot of companies have tried and failed, and a lot of companies that are now figuring out the secret sauce that, hey, if we can develop parts of this and we'll contract out the parts that bigger companies do better than we do, people with experience at building at scale, at volume. And it's becoming an unbelievable thing because now companies like Rivian, Bollinger are going to be contenders. Lucid will be contenders, whereas 100 years ago they had to do everything themselves from scratch, and they would have run out of money before they got a product to market unless they had investors with extremely deep pockets. Unfortunately, with a group of investors like that, everybody has their own idea about what it should be. Mm-hmm. And 100 years ago, car companies rose and fell because investors wanted to go one way and the people building the cars wanted to go another way. And it would have been an interesting thing if certain things turned out differently. But anyway, having said all that, Sony actually built a battery electric prototype sedan that their engineering team created from scratch themselves. And it actually was going through real world testing in Austria, of all places, and reached the next stage. Now, whether they're going to build it or have someone else build it, hard to say. But the fact that they're at the next stage, meaning that it's in what we would call in the industry validation. They're working all the parts. They're doing long-term testing. They're taking it through different environments, extreme heat, extreme cold, extreme wet, dampness, all this kind of thing, mile after mile, bumpy roads, smooth roads, high elevations, low elevations, dry weather, wet weather, hot weather, extremely bitter cold weather, which means that's why it's probably in Austria, because of course, most people will contend that an electric car loses upwards of 30 to 50% of its charge in extremely cold weather. So the fact that they've even gotten that far says something. Now, if they're like most EV manufacturers today, they may get what we call a tier 1 manufacturer, which is a supplier that deals directly with an automaker, because they have a lot of the facilities, and nowadays they build sub-assemblies for the automakers anyway. So they have a lot of the pieces necessary to actually manufacture it. In fact, in Europe, a number of these suppliers actually build cars on license for the automakers, particularly like low volume models or specialty models. They'll do that. But that's been going on for years.
Yeah.
So that would not be new. The fact that an electronics company built an electric car from scratch, that's something.
We said at present we have no plans to mass produce or sell the vehicle.
Right. That's why we went through the exercise. Right. Does that have shades of somebody else who's been saying that off and on? I don't know. Company that has a picture of a fruit, and I wouldn't call Apple by name. But yeah, Apple computer, maybe, who is not talking with Hyundai anymore, but they're talking with Kia. That's like apples and apples because, part of the same company.
They said to tackle self-driving, the concept in its current form uses 40 sensors, 4 of which we talked about was LiDAR, LiDAR, as part of a safety cocoon that monitors both the interior and the exterior and creates a 360-degree view of the world.
They are looking to optimize safety through test drives on public roads. Right. We're not going to do this. And they even got, they've got information. The thing is 2.5 tons. It's powered by a pair of 268 horsepower electric motors. That's over 500 horsepower, people. 520-ish horsepower. Right there. One on each axle, which means this puppy is a beast. Because with an electric motor, you get all the torque from the time you drop your foot. There's no spooling. It's immediate, and you get all of it. With no hesitation, no working up, nothing. You get it. Boom. From the first time, you get everything. But bear this in mind. They know this much. 0 to 62 miles an hour. 4.8 seconds with a top speed of 149 miles an hour. Do you know how much engineering you have to do to get that information?
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that they can even say that with a surety, and they're not saying no. The article says, let me read it again, resulting in a 0 to 62 mile an hour in just 4.8 seconds with a top speed of 149 miles per hour. It's also capable of a variety of autonomous functions such as parking. Again, I ask, does that sound like somebody doing it just as an exercise to you?
Yeah, and they're an immensely capable company, and they're a brand name that people, I think, trust, seems like.
But the auto industry costs billions to play in.
Oh, yeah.
Billions.
Yeah.
If you ain't got $250 billion, you might as well not play.
Yeah.
Because honestly, with parts, service, advertising, building the plant, getting the equipment, even if you source out most of that, okay, even if you source out most of that, you're still going to be spending billions upon billions of dollars, and you're looking at a commitment to even start to get your money back 20 or 30 years.
I think it's showing how hot these companies, Apple too, feel the market is for it and where it's going. And
Now, remember I said that certain European suppliers have built cars. Now, it references Magna Steyr, which is one of those companies. I believe they're based in Germany. And it says they have a long history of building specialty cars for the automakers, which is transferred over electric vehicles, suggest more could be in the works, which means that's their partner, which means this car could be built.
yeah,
The fact that they got that far means this car could be built. So the question becomes, are we looking at a Sony car along with an Apple car to go with Lucid, Rivian, Bollinger for openers, Workhorse, which is a fleet truck, is going to be. And these are just the ones we know. There are other companies coming to market with EVs that you've never heard of. So the question is, what's this field going to look like? You know, we'll be talking a little later in the show about what Ford is doing, and they upped the ante considerably from where they were. And the funny thing of it is, are you ready for this? With what Ford is willing to spend in the next 5 years and what GM is willing to spend in their years, is still less than what Hyundai spent.
coming up.
This is Roadworthy Drive